I haven't done anything. I haven't even opened my suitcase. Am I supposed to, like, leave with a zinger? I'm not sure what's going on, but bye, I think.
Hey, I'm Dr. Jake, YouTube's loudest and proudest physician. Buckle up for a wild ride. In its initial seasons, Drag Race was extremely formulaic. The queens all competed in a challenge, displayed their garments on the runway, and were berated by a slightly manic host.
I was rooting for you! We were all rooting for you! How dare you!
Sorry. Wrong show, same format. And then the bottom two queens of each episode would lip sync for their lives, with the losing queen banished to the Shadow Realm for eternity. And for the first 2 seasons, the show adhered very strictly to the format, 1 queen eliminated per episode. However, the producers, who clearly are no strangers to the reality TV format, quickly adapted to the challenge of making every new season seem fresh. And season 3 brought Drag Race's first twist. Shangela returned after being eliminated first on her original season. The first twist was as unexpected as it was corny. And as the show grew and developed into an international phenomenon, so too did its stupefications. So much so that the twists have become a part of Drag Race's brand. A promise of a new twist has even made it into the Drag Race season 13 and 14 promo. Now, generally, the twists on Drag Race relate to eliminations in some way. A high placement can propel a queen into a global career and international stardom. The loss of these heightened opportunities really sucks for the queens. Most of them are visibly upset at the time of their elimination, despite putting on a strong face for the camera. So when production springs one of these twists on the queens, it can have a huge impact on their mental health, which is a topic that the show has consistently failed to discuss in any meaningful way.
I'm your new mommy.
The show's treatment of mental health, though, is a topic that I want to discuss in another video. This video is about how the show deceives its contestants. There are 3 ways that the producers trick the queens to create drama: positive, negative, and neutral twists. The first positive twist in the show's history was the double Shantae, which occurred in season 3. Carmen Carrera and Yara Sofia lip-synced against each other, and rather than sending either home, RuPaul keeps both in a double Shantae. In case you're not following, this is a positive twist because one queen is expected to go home, and instead they both get to stay. That means that each queen gets more airtime and another chance to win the entire competition. It's a positive for both queens. And the double Shantae was repeated in seasons 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, several other regular seasons, All-Stars 1, multiple international seasons, because when this show finds something that works, yeah, they do it again. But note that a double Shantae in an all-star season with a lip sync for your legacy rules is not a positive twist, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. By the way, if you want to hear all about double Shantaes on Drag Race, I strongly suggest you watch the Drag Detectives video on the history of double Shantaes that I will link in the description. The second type of positive twist is a no elimination episode. This is a little bit different from a double Shantae. Season 9 was the first time that there was a no elimination episode. They basically told all the queens after the runway that no one would be going home. There was no lip sync, they all just stayed. And the third type of positive twist is bringing a queen back. As I mentioned before, this first happened in season 3 when Shangela popped out of the box to compete a second time. This type of twist was used a second time in season 3 when Carmen Carrera was brought back for literally no reason at all. And this twist too has become a Drag Race staple.
I believe you have my stapler.
In contrast to this, a negative twist is the opposite of a positive one. More queens go home than are expected. And the first type of negative twist is just the opposite of a double Shantae, a double sachet. This first happened in season 5 when Vivian Panay lip-synced against Honey Mahogany and they both went home. And as I alluded to before, a double Shantae on an all-star season with a lip-sync for your legacy format is actually more like a double Shantae. Both of the winning queens have the opportunity to send one of their competitors home. Another type of negative twist is a queen leaving before being eliminated by RuPaul. Obviously, the queen's leaving isn't something production can control and doesn't really represent a form of deception per se. And finally, disqualification. This hasn't happened often. The only one where it's really happened was Willem in season 4. There were 2 disqualifications in Drag Race Italia, but spoilers ahead, they just had both of the disqualified queens lip sync and the loser went home. So were either of them actually disqualified? But anyway, the final type of twist is a neutral twist. These types of twists are typically a big change to the show's format. Sometimes they're amazing, like the switch to a lip sync to your legacy format in All-Stars Season 2. And sometimes they're duds, like all Disney movie sequels, except Return of Jafar. That one was pretty great.
Give it up, Jafar! We're obviously too much for you to handle!
If I were the producers, I would hold the next season in Kansas, and I would tell them a big tornado. But in any case, in terms of mental health and deception, not every twist is created equal. In general, I prefer positive twists over negative ones. However, I recognize that there can be a ton of benefit to a negative twist. A double sachet, for example, can allow production an opportunity to better showcase the remaining queens left in the competition. It's devastating for those two queens, of course, but if they weren't going to win, they were going to go home at some point, so it doesn't change their overall trajectory. But where production fails the queens is when they've watched half of my YouTube video and they have not yet subscribed to my channel. Does that sound like you? If so, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. Okay, so where the production really fails the queens is when they deceive them for too long. Let's fast forward to season 13's premiere. The queens were put into pairs and they lip-synced for their lives against each other. Every queen lip-synced in that episode. The winning queens stayed, and the losing queens were eliminated and sent to the pork chop lounge. But then another layer of deception is uncovered. All of the queens will stay in the competition except one. They have to vote another queen off of the show. Elliot with 2 T's is the victim and is appropriately completely fucking gutted. Now granted, she comes back in the next episode, but the damage is done. The morale in the pork chop lounge is absolutely shredded. Overall, I think the intention of this premiere format was to highlight every single queen. And it did that, but only a little and at the expense of the queen's feelings. And like, I know, they're on reality TV. Their feelings are gonna be hurt at some point. But the producers don't have to make half of the cast unhappy to make good TV. Just one season before, in the premiere for season 12, the queens wrote and performed their lyrics for I'm That Bitch, which, by the way, is one of my favorite Drag Race challenges in herstory. At the end of the episode, the safe queens are sent to the back of the stage and the top 2 queens lip sync. A positive, uplifting, and fun twist for the viewer, and a happy celebration for the 2 winners. They get to bask in the glory of a job well done. And for that reason, along with the fact that Widow Von'Du and Gigi Goode gave their performance of a lifetime, the lip sync felt amazing to watch. This is the way to do it. And funny enough, in season 13's subsequent episodes, the top 2 queens lip sync and everyone else is safe. And don't get me wrong, I'm extremely happy that no queens were eliminated in the premiere, but I guarantee that every queen in the pork chop lounge felt like absolute garbage. And I admit that when the season came out, it was a gag. But once the true twist of the episode was revealed, I just felt bad for them. And just to give the producers the benefit of the doubt, maybe that kind of premiere wasn't possible because of COVID restrictions, and keeping the queens in pairs initially was just the easiest way to film. But rather than deceive the queens and make them feel bad, why not say that the winner gets $1,000 and then you can still form the winners and losers club if that's the kind of drama that you want on the season, but nobody has to be devastated that they're not going to continue on in the competition. Okay, so season 13 did what it did, and then season 14 rolled around, and we got another split premiere. Initially, I was really happy. Challenge completed, winners declared, both losing queens lip sync, and then the loser of that lip sync goes home. So we're sort of back to what season 6 initially did with their split premieres. I would have loved 2 no elimination premieres like in season 12, but c'est la vie, they have to make the show work. And then they bring them back. Although bring them back is clearly a misnomer because they never intended to eliminate anyone in the first place, if we're being honest with ourselves. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's reasonable to expect that every contestant coming out of Drag Race is going to feel amazing. You have to eliminate contestants, someone has to go home first, and there can only be one winner of the show. Unless it's All Stars 4, in which case you can have 2, I guess. And while that sucks, it is an unavoidable consequence of both this show and reality television competition shows in general. And to an extent, deception is also somewhat necessary. If production puts all of its cards on the table from the start, the queens won't be able to have those authentic reactions. Take, for example, Bosco and the Golden Chocolate Bar. Just in case you lived under a rock for the last year, or rather just in case you didn't, because at least for me there was nothing to do except to watch Drag Race during the Pangina, RuPaul gave a chocolate bar to each queen. Upon elimination, each queen would open their chocolate bars and one bar was golden. If the open bar is all shiny, they don't kick out your tiny hiney. Spoiler alert, Bosco's bar was the one, and had Bosco known from the start of the season that she had the golden chocolate bar, there would be no surprise. And sure, they could have just done multiple takes and asked Bosco to manufacture a moment of shock and awe, but the way it was filmed felt triumphant, and I imagine the experience for Bosco was humbling. I identified with Bosco at that moment, and I was genuinely happy because Bosco seemed genuinely happy to get a second chance. But that moment, in contrast to the premiere deception, was much more palatable to me. This deception, the notion that Bosco was going home after losing a lip sync, was transient. Even though that moment probably felt like it lasted a million years for Bosco, she didn't have to wallow in the agony of defeat for days while she waited for the next episode to film. Ultimately, what it comes down to for me is that I love these queens. I try to go to local drag shows when I can, and you should too. And you should bring your children, because it makes Republicans angry. And if you're not making Republicans angry at a drag show, I think you're doing it wrong. I find it hard to get emotionally invested in the story of a drag queen when my only exposure to them is watching them lip sync to a Katy Perry song in the bar. But the reality television format allows the queens to showcase their personalities, stories, and emotions in a way that is impossible in most live performance settings. Granted, the editing sometimes gets in the way. It can create storylines that make queens look delusional or foolish and sometimes just outright ignores them, and I'm looking at you, Pandora Box. You should have gotten more screen time on All Stars 6. And even though there's bound to be some negative emotions that arise from being eliminated, I still think that the show should choose to showcase the queens in a way that 1, paints them in the best possible light, and 2, doesn't needlessly create stress and anxiety. Sometimes the queens will be upset or anxious or sad or annoyed or angry, and again, those moments are illuminating and special. Remember Shangela's face crack? And remember Bosco's ass crack? But what I want the show to do is to avoid creating these artificial situations that cause negative feelings and emotions and replace them with more positive experiences that don't leave the queens feeling like they've just been hit by the drag bus. Which brings me now to season 15, which at the time of this video is about to premiere. I fear that they're going to do the same shit again. I understand why they do it, okay? Drag Race overall aims to be an uplifting show that shows regional performers finally getting their big break, and to draw attention to performers who don't yet have celebrity, you have to create an emotional reaction. Sometimes that reaction is joy when a queen does well, and sometimes it's a moment of empathy for a queen ostracized and kicked out of her home who pulled herself up by her bootstraps, and sometimes it's shock at a surprising elimination. And then shock when they come back to the competition, I guess. For season 15 and beyond, please do your best to make twists and turns that don't cause the contestants undue strife. I know that there will always be a proponent of people who gain entertainment by watching others suffering. Like, I literally watched the video of that girl pushing a priest off the stage like 100 times today. But the Catholic Church hides pedophiles, so I think that's okay. Treat these queens well. I want them to be happy, both on and off the show. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments what you think. Has Drag Race gone too far in deceiving its contestants, or is this just par for the course for reality TV and the contestants are just acceptable collateral damage? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and watch another one. See you later. Bye. Regionable. To remain reasonably reasonable. Reasonable.